Hi, welcome back to the Cozy Coven podcast. I am one of your witchy hosts, Katie Lynn Wolfe. I am alone for the moment. Haley, unfortunately, has had a death in her family, so we are going to be wishing her all of the best. It's going to be a really tough season for them. So just send all of your vibes. If you are following us everywhere, um, go ahead and send her a little message, send us a little message we can pass along to her, put something in the chat. We were very, very sorry to hear that too. Haley, she's one of the sisters now. So uh, we feel that in our extended family too. But speaking of our family, we have a new sister joining us tonight. And I am just as jazzed as I can be to introduce her to you guys here in a minute. Um, thank you guys for what I'm seeing you put in the comments. If you are listening and can't get to your keyboard again, please send us a little message that we can pass along to Haley. We yeah, we're thinking about her. We're gonna be lighting some candles for them. Um, but our new family member, Rachel, is going to be with us here in just a minute. Rachel Krebs Drusilla. She comes to us with a paranormal witchy background. So she is going to be a wonderful and welcome addition to the coven. She'll be here with us in a minute, and we're going to talk to her a little bit about who she is, what she brings to our little crew, and kind of we're going to lead into some Yule stuff. We are getting closer and closer to Yule. Uh, Yay, Rachel. Yes, we are very excited to have her here. Um, oh, I have misspoke, and Rachel's last name is Demicco. I will let her clear that up for us here in just a second. But yeah, Rachel is here with us, kind of hanging out in the green room. She'll be here in a second. I see
And
her
here I
jumping in.
am.
Hi, Rachel.
Poof, like magic.
Hi. Hi.
Hi there.
Welcome to the coven.
I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, we are so grateful to have you here. Tell us where you are joining us from.
I'm here from Nashville, in Nashville, Tennessee right
Nashville.
now. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Originally, I'm a California girl, but I live in Nashville now. So.
oh, that's excellent. That's a real easy road trip away.
Oh God. It's fun. It's a fun road trip. We've done it a couple times, but
Oh
this
yeah.
time around I'll be going back for the holidays and we're flying.
Oh yeah, you don't want to make that drive in December. No, no, no.
Oh God. Yeah. Treacherous.
Yes, 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 yes. So, you are a paranormal investigator?
I am. I
How long have
am.
you been doing that?
Officially since 2022. So going on like 4 years, but unofficially probably since I was a kid. But yeah, I mean, I've had paranormal experiences my whole life, and that's what kind of really like drew me to kind of the world of the paranormal and everything spooky. And I felt like, very much so I was born into this for so many reasons, different reasons. I do have some abilities, and as I investigate more, they come on a little bit more, a little
Mhm.
stronger. And I think that has to do with like anything that you practice, I think a little bit more. And when you're opening yourself up. And so, yeah, I'm thoroughly loving it.
Good. Good. Do you remember your first like paranormal experience?
Oh yeah, yeah. I was, and I'm so sorry to hear about Haley's um, family member passing, but that's exactly what I lost my grandfather when I was about 10 years old. And a few months after his passing, I was staying at his old house with my grandmother. And as I did often, would go
Mhm.
there, spend the night on weekends and stuff
Sure.
whenever I could. And I was over there one weekend, came out in the morning, and there was my grandfather's like full ghost just standing in the front room of his living room there looking out the window. And I was
Oh,
like, what am I seeing right now? you know,
yeah.
and it was like, I for a second, I think I was in a state of shock. And then I ran to my grandmother and I'm like, there's someone I was like, grandma, 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 there's somebody in the living room. Right. And she comes out and she goes, it's okay. It's just grandpa.
Oh, so she could see him too.
And I was just, she made it completely normal. And she just said, Grandpa, she talked to him. She was like, Grandpa, you're scaring Rachel. It's time to go.
Oh,
And
wow.
he kind of like, the only way I can say that he kind of like, he didn't just disappear, but he sort of like phased out, if you know what I mean. It just kind of like, just like slowly dissipated and was gone after that.
Wow.
But and just recently I was talking to my parents about, some of my experiences. And I said, did I ever tell you about what happened at grandma's house? This is my dad's mom. Um, when I was little. And my dad said, I remember very well. He said, I remember you coming back home and saying that you saw grandpa. And I was like, yes. And he said, but did you know that grandma was telling me all the time that she saw spirits coming in and out of her closet in the bedroom. And she said, because she had like a little bit later, she had like ended up having a new boyfriend. And so he was at the house and she was like, he said that his name was Jose. Jose didn't believe her when she said that she was seeing spirits coming in and out of her bedroom closet. So apparently maybe something runs in the family. And I was talking to my sister about it. And then her kid tells me that he's had experiences. And I'm like, what? It's,
Wow.
yeah. It kind of opened like maybe there are some family ties to some of the experiences and activity that we've had over
Yeah.
the
Has
years. So
anybody ever done like a genealogy or anything to see if you can trace back your family to some very active places or?
my nephew actually said he was working on like a whole family tree and history. And he said that on my mom's side, though, he found a connection to Salem, to actually one of the accused witches, but it wasn't a female witch, it was a male that
Oh,
was
wow.
accused. Yeah, that it tied back to. And I was like, oh my gosh, because I'd been to Salem during, kind of during Halloween, did the whole, thing as part of it was a dream of mine to get there.
Oh, yeah.
And so, I found it fascinating. There are certain places, and I say, like New Orleans and Salem are definitely like called to me, like I feel like a pull,
Yeah.
almost like a magnetic pull to those locations. So
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
I wonder if you have family from New Orleans on your mom's side then.
I know. I don't know. It's
Hmm.
pretty interesting to find out.
Yeah.
I will have to work on learning more, like peeling away the layers sometimes,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that would be neat to find out if those are pulling because you do have those roots. Hmm.
Yeah, for sure. And that would sort of make sense as to why I kind of have always had this affinity and this sort of like, you know, this kind of wanting and longing and needing to know kind of those things that are like beyond the veil of what we can normally see.
Yeah.
And I can say that I'm really like afraid of them, and I think as when I do paranormal investigating, at first I was really like, thought I was just an empath, like had clairsentience.
Hmm.
But as I keep investigating more and more locations, what I'm learning is I'm also having like clairaudience that's coming on. So I'm hearing the spirits, and it's kind of validating because we'll be using equipment, like digital recorders and video cameras and that kind of thing, and we'll review evidence later, and I'll be there. I've been in multiple locations where I'll say like, okay, did somebody just whisper something to me?
Yeah.
And they'll be like, I was like, did anybody else hear a voice? And they were like, no. And then because I said that, it's sort of marked on the audio or the video camera. And when we review that, we can look back and there's absolutely a voice multiple times that says something.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah, one of the craziest experiences was at Harriman Hospital here in Tennessee, and I was with a few other investigators from different teams, and we were in this it's a old hospital that is no longer in use, but we were on this second floor of this building, and it used to be, I guess, a what they called the CCN, which is the continuation care unit.
Okay.
um, and we were in there, and one of the investigators was lying on the only like hospital bed in the room, and she was doing what's called an Estes method. And so that's when
Yes.
that's when they're like lying in the bed and they're under sensory deprivation. So they have like noise canceling headphones and a blindfold on. And then the other investigators in the room will ask questions and see, and she's supposed to, whoever's under Estes is supposed to respond to whatever they hear in the headphones.
Hmm.
And so it's like I was talking with the girl, the investigator next to me, and we were discussing because she had done the Estes method prior to this. And she was like, it was really strange. I really felt like there was a doctor there. And I said, yeah, it really feels like in this space, like we are in an environment of a still working hospital. And as
Oh,
we're talking about this, all of a sudden, and I have it on my Instagram, um, and TikTok, I think too. But we were recording at the same time, like I was recording on my phone, like the session happening, and you hear what is like the clearest, loudest, like, you know, uh, disembodied voice I've ever heard. It sounded like it was literally in my ear, and it said, "I see you."
oh, oh,
And then like the
ugh.
girl that was next to me, our friend, her name is Alicia, and she grabs my hand and she thinks the sound is coming out of her friend who's doing the Estes method, Beverly, in this hospital bed. And so she pulls me and we end up on top of Beverly, who screams because she doesn't know what the heck is happening. And mind you, at that time, every piece of equipment that we had, our REM pod, our tripwire lights on the floor, everything is going off at the same time as this is happening. And everybody, the three of us investigators who were asking the questions, all heard the same thing. And we each thought it was in our ear. It was that loud to every single one of us. And you can clearly hear it on this.
Oh,
But I don't think it was like saying, after the fact, we were kind of like rolling back and going like, okay, let's think about this. And I said, we were up in the unit they called, the continuation care. But I said, what if they called it the ICU at the time? At some
uh,
point in time, I was like, maybe that's exactly, because I said, remember we were talking about how we felt like it was a running hospital and there was a doctor there who was saying, you're in my way.
yeah.
I'm just trying to work here. And so they were like, oh my God, that makes total sense now. And it was
Yeah.
like, hello, I see you. We're trying to work here.
Oh,
So
yeah.
yeah, it's just fascinating to me. The more I do it, it's not like I'm seeking answers, but I think I end up with like more questions, right?
Well, that's good. That's good. Um,
Yeah.
so was that Was that the loudest place you've been?
I
Because I
mean,
know,
that's,
there's more movement, but was that the actual loudest place you've been?
I think the loudest as far as like loud and clear, because a lot of times, when I hear them at least, they're very it's a very whispery, soft voice, but this spirit had, whatever was telling I see you was had power and purpose. He knew what he was trying to convey to us and was
Yeah.
very loud about it, which I found just like very unusual for all the locations we've been at. So
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think has probably been the most active that scared you? Because sometimes places are just active and you're like, okay, would you just settle down?
yeah, right. Yeah, I think that it wasn't really a scared. I don't think I've been like necessarily like scared to like want to leave a location and be like, I'm out, I'm done.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary, here in Tennessee, which is one of the most notably haunted locations in the country. Um, I think that place, yeah, I had to get myself out of this one building, because it felt so uncomfortable. And I would say uncomfortable in the way that it felt like so heavy on my chest that, I felt like I couldn't catch my breath. Like I
Right.
couldn't, like it was really hard for me to catch my breath. And that became freaky to me, where I was like, I can't, like I didn't have control over, my body. And I was like, I need to get out of this space now.
Yeah.
And so, when that happens, I walked out. And as soon as I got into kind of the prison yard area, like it felt so much better. But yeah, it took a moment. And I would say, yeah, that's a pretty active location. We also heard like in the cafeteria area, there were conversations happening all around us. It was wicked crazy.
Yeah. Huh.
That's just one of those spots. I mean, that has multiple layers. It's not just the prisoners that were there at the prison,
Right.
but before it was a prison, the land and the building had, other uses.
Hmm.
Um, So I think that has a lot to do with sometimes the energy that exists in a location.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah.
Huh. Is there one that not necessarily a spirit brought home with you, but where you just brought something home, where you just had a moment or an experience that just, for whatever reason, that specific thing has stuck with you, or that place now has a space within you?
Yeah. I mean, I would go back probably to even, in the San Francisco Bay Area. We went, to the Winchester Mystery House, which is a
Huh.
pretty, yeah, famous location. We had been multiple times because it was kind of like in our backyard per se. So I had been quite a few times there on the tours. They didn't really allow investigations, but they invited, a select group of us to sort of beta test a new tour that they were going to offer. And so, since we're kind of like the regulars that went,
Yeah.
every so often, they were like, "Hey, would you want to come on this tour? Tell us what you think. Give us your feedback. You know what?" And it was sort of what they called a behind the scenes tour. So, it was like, uh, locations within the house, within the mansion that had never been shown to the public before. And so
Ooh.
I was like, I need to go. This is going to be great. And so, my husband and I went, and, they took us to this one room that was sort of like, it was like on a top floor. It was almost like, reminds you of like an attic-y type of space, because
Sure.
it was very roughed in. It didn't have like sheetrocked walls. It was basically just, beams. and 2x4s kind of make up the building. And the building, I remember sort of being sort of in a round shape. And when I walked in that space, everything started to spin for me, like the whole room spinning. And I thought, oh my God, I'm gonna pass out. Like this is crazy. Like and I was telling my husband, I said, I'm gonna pass out. And he was like, let's get out of this room. And I said, but I need to know what this space is, like, because they hadn't told us. And because I said there's something very off about this space, and I can't tell you why at this moment. And so he's like, come out of the room. We can listen from the hallway area and still see what the space is about. And as soon as I got out of the room, I felt better. But listening in, it was like, I heard that basically they said they think that was Sarah Winchester's like main seance room. Yeah.
Oh,
and
wow.
I was like, okay, that makes sense now.
Everybody's
like
here right now, and they don't want to go through.
It almost felt like, vortex portal like energy, where there was just so much of it swirling around, that I think that's what the like dizziness I was getting of this space. So wow. That definitely that has stuck with me for years.
Yeah. Would you try the room again if you went back?
Hell yeah. Oh yeah, I would go back in a heartbeat. And because I mean that's the one thing, if you're imploring science right behind it, what are they going to say? And a scientific experiment is going and trying to get the same result, like a repeatable result. So why not test? If I'm like the conduit there that can like test if this is going to really happen again, like that's a good measurable way to do it.
Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah. It's a pretty interesting space. I mean, beyond the fact that it has like, staircases that lead to nowhere, and, drop offs of like windows in the middle of the building that like you look down and there's no floor to it. And like all the steps are much shallower and shorter than average steps. And so it's kind of like you're in a labyrinth almost. That it seems like confusing. And I know she did that for a reason. I mean, Sarah Winchester felt that she was cursed, right? She was the heir to the Winchester rifle. And, the spirits told her, because she had lost her husband, she had lost her baby really young. And they said that you're cursed because your family made a weapon that killed so many people. And these spirits want vengeance, for what happened. And so the only way they said that you would be safe is if you kept building and let the spirit sort of be the architect of the building. And so she just built. I mean, up until the day she died. The day she died, building stopped. It ceased. So the place has remained the same since.
Wow.
Yeah. Since her passing.
Imagine having enough money that you could just do that and nobody would stop you.
She's like how much Jeff Bezos. Yeah. She had that much money back in that time period. I mean, it equated to about the same money. She built every single day, didn't stop, like had full contractor on the property with his whole team doing things all the time. And it's interesting because she incorporated what is a lot of like numerology. She did like everything had like the number 13 encoded in it for some reason. Also the like the sun rays. So like there's a stained glass, and it has like there's a number 13 in it on the gate of the property. It says like I think it has like Winchester on it, but then it's also got a sun with 13 rays coming off of the sun. So it's interesting how those things are encoded into what she did.
Yeah.
But a lot of that was spiritualism in its kind of like heyday.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah,
which
that was
is fascinating to me too on a whole nother level. I just
to
I think
watch
that they had,
ebb and
yeah,
flow with spiritualism. We're kind of swinging back around to it right now.
I think so. And I think that they were kind of on the right track with things if they didn't get cut off. I think I think it actually has to be a blend of things, right? I don't think that one thing has an answer. I think, if we work together with, science and the paranormal and um, religion, even, I think that if we worked hand in hand, then maybe we would have a little bit more answers, because I think the answers lie in between all of those things, because there are so many like common denominators, and people are starting to come around to that, because I think when you see in science and quantum theory, then it starts to kind of like open that door of like, okay, spooky things happen in quantum physics, right? There's
Yeah.
particles that can be in two places at the same time. And it's kind of like, well, how is that? And they collapse into one when there's an observer who sees it, right? So if there's an observer who sees it, then the particle goes from being, here and here at the same time to, whoop, I'm in one spot now because I'm being observed.
Yes. Yeah.
Spooky.
Yeah. But it happens. Yeah. So this is why I say I think you're going to be a great addition to the Coven.
Yeah,
Because
because I get talk a little too much
that
on it.
blindly believe we're just like, yep, it's there, it happens. I'm in. Take me to all of the places. I love going to those places with a skeptic too, and
Oh
hoping
yeah.
something happens, and they're just like, okay, let's figure out why this is this.
Yes. Yes. So that's why I'll take my husband on like investigations with us, because he said he's an open-minded skeptic. He says I need to see proof. And I'm just like, okay, touch him. and then so at every location that he'll come to, I'll be like, please, please, please touch him, you know. But a lot of people,
Good with it. He gave the okay. He's wearing the bracelet, the whole thing.
yeah, he's saying touch me. But I'm like, there's there was another like a podcast I was on somewhere that brought up a good point. It's kind of like, if you're a spirit and somebody believes and somebody doesn't believe, who are you going to spend your energy with and like communicate with? Most of the time they'll be like, it's easier to communicate with somebody who believes
Yeah.
in than it is to communicate with someone who doesn't believe, who is like, it basically, I'm wasting my time.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I'm
And
using a lot of
especially if it,
energy to begin with.
yeah, and especially if we think what spirits are was made of energy, and it takes a lot for them to do because they don't have a physical body anymore. So just to make a sound or to move from place to place or to show yourself
Mhm.
takes a lot of energy, and they have to get that energy from somewhere too, to be able to do those things, at least we believe.
Now, have they been successful in reaching your husband? Has
He's had So he had interesting, earlier this year we were at a place it's called Cabinet 360. I was there doing speaking at a paranormal convention there, and we were doing an so they had a convention. It was like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and they had on Friday night and Saturday night, they did investigations after the convention was kind of done, so people could participate and they could be with investigators like us, and participate in a real life investigation using our same tools and techniques and all of that we can teach them. And so we were in the basement of this building where this little girl, she was murdered by her brother, which is a really sad story, but they believe that the family, including the father, is still there. So we were in this basement where he supposedly had some kind of workshop where he either did, worked on something, whether it was carpentry or machinery or something. We don't know what. And we were asking questions about that. And we were in this kind of like this circle down there. And there was a lady who was next to me. And then my husband was on the other side of me. And then there was a girl who was like a very first time investigator next to him. And the lady goes, did you make furniture down in the basement? And in between, what sounded like in between me and my husband, we both heard a response to that right after was out of there. It was definitely a male voice, and it said no, but it said it like no.
Oh.
And I looked at him and he looked at me and he goes, did you hear something? And I said, I sure did. And he was like, I heard a voice. And I was like, yeah. He was like, what? He was like, it responded to that question. And I said, yeah, it did. And then he goes to the girl next to him and he said, did you hear a voice? And she goes, yes. and he said, what did it say? And she goes, no. But that was her very first time, her very first experience. But that was also his very first hearing it audibly himself. And I'm like, okay, debunk that.
Yeah.
I was like, not so easy. And he was like, well, maybe somebody had a speaker somewhere. And I'm like, okay, you're stretching. Like, yeah. But I was like, he says he admits now, because he's been on a number of investigations and we review the evidence together. And where he's heard, like, he's been in the room and clearly not heard voices. And yet on our cameras or our digital recorders, we will have responses to questions that we did not hear at the time, or not everybody hears at the time. But so he's like, those are harder to explain. And I'm like, yeah, slightly. Yeah. How do you explain? You were only the male in the room and you weren't saying anything. How come there's another male speaking?
Yeah. Who was it?
Exactly. And I'm like, I'm not a ventriloquist, so
Right. Of all of my many talents, that is not one.
No, not in the least.
Oh my goodness. That's so exciting. Do you have some investigations coming up?
We're kind of like at a lull point, because during the winter time it becomes harder to investigate locations unless they are locations that have heat to them. Yeah. Otherwise, we've done, like last year we did, unfortunately made the mistake of doing a location where it was cold. They didn't have any heat. We thought we were going to be fine wearing layers. Mm-hmm. We were freezing to death because the building was old and it didn't have any modernized heat to it. So they had one little plug-in heater in a room that was like downstairs, but this was an old courthouse building. And so there were like these big rooms, like, and we were up in the third level, had like third floor courtrooms. And, we were just so cold. Like our teeth were like literally chattering inside the building because being in Tennessee, like it gets really cold here. Yeah. Like we're supposed to have like this, I think Sunday, we're getting down into, like, I think the high, they said Sunday was supposed to be 25 and a low of probably 8 degrees. Yeah. So I'm like, we kind of tend to wait for this turns into like our planning time. We decide what we're going to do for and plan our investigations and what our next year is going to look like. So we have a lot of ideas in mind of where we want to go. I think I'm going to go on a public investigation of a house that we've been to with a historic home in Kentucky, that we were at last weekend, but we're going to do that in January. And then in March, actually, we're going to do that same home, but we're going to do a spiritualist kind of experiment where we're going to do like a table tipping kind of seance. And I'm going to be actually working with Christopher Lee Jansen, who is who I do the podcast with, the Paranormal Podcast. Yeah, so the Paranormal Playbook podcast that I think he and his partner are going to come with us, and there's going to be, I think, a total of 6 of us, and I think we're going to try and make a little documentary series out of it. So
Very cool. Very cool.
where we do some of that, bringing back those spiritualist techniques and seeing if, how much of a difference that is versus, like our traditional sort of technological tools.
Yeah.
Yeah. We hope it'll be awesome. We hope we get a great response.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't want them going, you know what? There's too many people. We're just going to be.
I know, exactly. But, with Christopher there, he's got some abilities, and,
Yes.
that hopefully will entice them to come out of the woodwork. So does Noah. Noah has some abilities. I have a little bit of abilities. So, yeah.
Katie does an awesome show on Wednesday nights. Oh, thank you, Anthony.
And I'm so happy to be part of it.
Yeah, Wednesday.
Oh, you do.
Wednesday nights, we read short stories.
Oh, that's so cool.
We've been doing Nathaniel Hawthorne right now.
Oh,
yeah.
I love that.
Last night was mildly political. I read them cold, so I was not expecting to give like this big speech in the middle of this short story. But yeah, it gets pretty fun. You'll have to
I've got to check it out.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Yeah. So where can people find videos and recorded voice recordings and whatnot of your investigations?
So on Sinister Sisters Paranormal is the name we have of our group, of our team. So on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, it's all Sinister Sisters Paranormal.
Excellent. We'll try to make sure we put a link or something in the comments so people can go and check that out, because I'm going to. I want to hear some of these voices.
Yeah, we've gotten some interesting ones, and we keep reviewing evidence, and whenever we come up across something really good, we put it out there so that others can hear what we find.
Yeah. Now, do you sometimes post the video without any kind of a caption to see what people think they're hearing?
Yeah, for sure.
What's probably the funniest? Well, I heard that you've seen in the comments.
Oh, well, that we've heard. I haven't had like anybody thinking. Well, as mostly like our teammates have heard funny things that, and we kind of like, well, I hear this, and they're like, no, but I hear it say, and it's like sometimes it is really funny. Like somebody said, we thought it said like a name of a restaurant called Sperry's, and they thought it said asparagus. So we were like, that's hilarious. So now it became an inside joke then after that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You just get little shirts made and everything.
Yeah. It must be the asparagus. And people will be like, okay, what the heck does that mean?
Yeah. If you know, you know.
Yeah.
Go back and watch the videos. You'll figure it out.
Yeah.
So we are getting into the multiple holiday season. I think we're smack dab in it. You said you guys don't really do a lot of investigations in the winter unless they have heat. Have you done a Yule/Christmas investigation anywhere?
No, No, the closest we came to doing one was actually last year. We tried to do an investigation for charity, and
Oh,
we were going to call it Krampus Night. So it was like Krampus. We did the German pronunciation, so it was Krampus not
yes.
N-A-U or N-A-C-H-T. That's
Yeah.
it. Not, I think that's how they say it, something like that. But and it was supposed to be a location we've done a few times. It was just hard to get down, I guess, people to go down there. That was the hard part because it was in Lynchburg, Tennessee. Uh,
Oh.
yeah, so it's in the area where they make where they have the Jack Daniels plant. So
Mhm.
Jack Daniels is made in Lynchburg, Tennessee.
Yeah.
It's weird that it's the only still dry county, but they make Jack Daniels there.
Really?
You're not allowed to drink it. You can drink, like, I think in the one room you can drink like at when you're on tour, but that's it. Why is my battery? I'm so sorry. Oh, because
Oh,
maybe
you're
it got
good.
unplugged. My battery just told me, like, it's about your battery is burning out. And I'm like, why? Oh, it's unplugged. There we go. We're back in business.
Because
Technical difficulties.
I, um, I was kind of looking things up for the Yule and all of that, and the one thing I kept seeing, looking at Christmas spirits or Yule spirits, was that line in "It's the most wonderful time of the year." There'll be scary ghost
Hmm.
stories because if you go further back, in the Northern European traditions, they're like, no, the veil's a little light here too.
Yep.
Those ancestors are trying to come through, and yeah, I mean, there is something about an autumn fire and telling ghost stories and whatnot, but being in your house with a good fire going and all the lights off, and then trying to scare the snot out of each other.
Yeah, I mean, well, originally, I think, like where you were mentioning, I think that, ancestors of the past, right? Winter was known back then as the season of the spirits
Hmm.
because everything was just like a little bit more challenging to survive. I mean, back then it's really survival, right? You
Yeah.
had to build a fire because to stay warm, to cook food, to do those kind of things. And so that's kind of where like the folklore started, right? Like those long, dark, wintry nights, perfect for being around the fire and telling those stories. And a lot of those were to honor, the ancestors of the past,
Hmm.
and sort of pay homage to it, to them. Um, so yeah, I was like looking it up a little bit too, when we were talking about it. And I think that, now we celebrate sort of, they were mentioning when I was reading, was celebrating like the Yule as sort of a blending of modern Christmas into sort of more of a liminal time,
Hmm.
the time where things are like where that veil is thin, where there is increased spiritual activity, where, winter, like all the other creatures, right, are kind of go dormant. They hibernate, and it becomes a lot quieter outside.
Hmm.
And, then we start to think about those things of like, even nowadays, when I get together with like the family gatherings and we talk about, our relatives that have passed, like, oh, oh, grandma would have loved that, or, my aunt would have.
Christmas that grandpa did such and such.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so it's kind of like, I think it's just almost like a natural part of the cycle, the cyclical
Hmm.
nature of things and what we do. And a lot of times I know that they kind of left offerings for the spirits, and, kind of like to 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 say we remember you.
Hmm.
And here we put out this offering, maybe in an altar type space to say, I want to put this here in your memory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know, you can see that where there may actually be a place set at the table.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not its own sacred place, but you know, the family is still the family. You know,
Yes. Whether we're here physically or not.
yeah, your space at the table is still here.
Yes.
Yeah,
And I think there's something really special about that.
Yeah, because but yeah, I kind of have always felt like if the spirits are going to come, why not during the winter?
Yeah.
You know, Scrooge could have been touched by the universe at any time of the year, but the three ghosts came to him at Christmas.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So,
exactly.
yeah.
And I mean, some of that goes even back to like Norse times, where they were saying that some of these traditions came out of where they felt like even the gods like Odin and Frau and Loki kind of all came out at that time. They were more active um, around that time period, and they felt like they could connect more to them.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah.
they often were like all about them, the spirit showing them like signs during that time. And sometimes it was kind of like in the, if we were to go like the tradition of like Krampus, there were consequences to their appearing, right? It was like, you better behave if you're a little kid in Germany.
Yeah, those were definitely the ghost stories leading up to whatever. Yeah, even Santa, you know, has a
naughty
punishment.
or nice. Yeah. Do you get some coal?
Right. Yeah, candy or coal, kids.
Yeah, it's done the same way, right? Teaching you like there are consequences to your actions. And so that's kind of a little bit of the spookier side, I guess I could say. But also, I think that divination and magic were also pretty prominent back then. They would do a lot of fire gazing, sort of candle readings, even like the 12 days of we call them Christmas now, but the 12 days of Yule were also like 12 different omens.
Yeah.
Leading
up to and through. Yeah, that's I think that has been probably the most fun part of learning about each of the different Sabbats and whatnot is, you know, what traditions have crossed over, because they just make sense. You know, they just, you know, when you look at the different decorations for, you know, Yule versus Christmas, it's all the same.
Yeah, it is.
We're all going to put a wreath on our front door. We're all going to, you know, have a star. We're going to share a lot of the same symbols, whether they mean the same
thing. That's love that. Time of year, you'll love it. And we do. Hey, Brandy.
Hey. Brandy, I think, is new. Hello.
But yeah, even like the famous Yule log that even used to be on TV forever to just play music, that goes back.
That is probably my favorite thought about Yule, you know, having that community fire and then everybody taking a piece of the community back to their homes. Like, it makes me want to actually have a fireplace.
I know. That's what I love. I have just a gas fireplace, but I love just sitting in, like, I'm known as the fire hog, because I will sit, like, put myself directly in front of that fire, and I'm just like, yes, I'm in my happy place.
Nobody needs anything, right? Because I'm not getting up.
Nope. I'll be there in front of the fire with my dog and and I'm gonna have
Just say
camp.
either a dog or a cat on your lap,
Oh
my
yeah.
chocolate, a good book. I'm done.
Yeah. I'm like, don't talk to me till spring.
Yeah, I will fall out eventually. Until then, I'm right here.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And
Excellent.
even, yeah, there's so many just even sort of like when I was looking at the connections, there's like so many real world sort of paranormal connections that come through um at this time of year. There's there's even notably in haunted, very haunted well-known locations that have increased the frequency of hauntings during this time of year.
Mhm.
Um also like a lot of what we experience of when we're out investigating, we'll say that there's like a cold spot. You know, we might feel that like a void of energy where it feels like a cold breeze
Mhm.
that comes through. um, so you know that also seems to increase. It's very interesting that it just there is this time period where you know we say for many reasons why the veil is thinner now.
Yeah.
And you know we have this theory and I like to call it the others theory, and I don't know if you've seen that movie. So in a movie called the others, yeah.
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 Oh,
So
oh.
what if, because I've we have this in the like amongst like as team members, we always have this conversation and we started gearing a lot of our questions to the ghosts about this. But how do we know that that we're not the dead ones?
Yeah.
How would we know? I mean, you know, spoiler alert, if you've haven't seen the others,
Oh,
turn away
go
now.
watch it. Watch it. Watch it. Watch it.
It's one of my favorite movies. And, you know, it's because she doesn't know that until it takes her throughout the movie, right, to find out that she is not the live one.
Yeah.
She's, in fact, dead. And she thinks she's being haunted
Yeah. Yeah.
by this, you know, spirit of this old lady, right? And it's
Yeah.
not the idea. So, you know, who's to say? I mean, and so some of the questions that we gear a lot towards the spirits now is we'll ask them, can you see us? And we'll ask them what time period that they see.
Right.
We've gotten responses, but also I asked the question, is there rules to how you can communicate with our side? And
Oh.
I've heard on several occasions that the answer is yes. Um, yeah.
Oh.
So then I'm like, oh, it's just like, and then I'll go, of course, on another movie tangent where I'll be like, oh, it's just like Beetlejuice. They need
I was just
the
gonna say,
handbook
where's
for
my
the
handbook?
recently deceased. You know,
Yeah.
they're like the living they choose not to see the
Yes.
dead that are around us all the time. And so it's kind of like, well, maybe they're just on a different timeline than we are. Maybe they're perfectly like living on their own timeline. It's just right next to ours, like in a different
Right.
dimension, right? The other side of that veil, that wall. But
Yeah.
there
Just
might be certain locations, like these historic locations that seem to have, you know, maybe there's something traumatic that happens there, or there's something to the land that really um, calls to the energy to be there for some reason or another. They're either attached there or they choose to be there. We're
Mhm.
not quite sure. That's a question we always ask, is like, you know, do you have free will? Can you come and go as you please? And a lot of times they'll say yes as well, that they can, because a lot of people think, oh, well, they stick around because they have unfinished business. That's not always the case. They might just stick around because it's a place where they have fond memories of, you know, maybe it was their house for multiple generations. And, you know, it's a safe space for them to be.
Right. Right. Huh.
So that's where I think, we can kind of push the boundary a little bit to start asking like those type of questions instead of the ones like, are you here? Can you make a noise? It's like, okay, let's go a little beyond that. Let's like see if we
Right.
can.
That's a parlor trick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And they don't want to hear the same, I'm sure. I mean, if I was a spirit and investigators were coming around all the time saying, can you knock in on this? Can you make a bang? Can you show yourself to me? It's like, if you're a spirit, you're going to be like, no, I'm done. I don't want to deal with you.
Yeah.
Get
You
the
see
heck out of
me
here.
doing that same thing. I'm not doing it for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Huh.
And the
Well,
way
I
that we
talk
seem
to
to get,
you. Yeah. I
oh,
could
I
talk
know we're
to this
coming up
for
on
like
the hour.
4 hours. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
I know.
Um,
But at least we'll have more podcasts.
but I'm so glad that you're here and you're part of the coven now.
I'm so
Um,
excited.
So everybody, yes, please make sure you put in the comments a little hello and welcome for Rachel. We are so happy she is here. She will be back with us next week, not just a guest, but she is part of the coven. And we'll try to delve a little bit more into Yule, but I was just so interested in like everything that you've done. I want to pick your brain more about this. So hopefully Haley will be back with us
Yes,
next
I hope
week.
so.
Don't forget, tonight's episode was brought to you by the Scare Zone. You can go over there. You can find all kinds of merch. I think there is even Cozy Coven podcast merch over there. So you
Yeah.
guys go
Hey.
check it out. Go check out all of Rachel's Instagram. Hopefully, we'll get some links up there for everybody. It's the Sinister Sisters, correct?
Yeah, just Sinister Sisters Paranormal. Yeah.
Perfect. Sinister Sisters Paranormal. All right, guys, make sure that you check it out. Oh, it's coming soon. Our merch is
Yes.
coming soon to scarezone.net. You guys go check it out. Rachel, thank you for joining me tonight.
Thank you so much for having me.
We'll
And I'm so excited
absolutely.
for the
We'll
future.
see all of you guys next week. As always, find your little coven, be kind to each other, and mix your science with your scary, and let's try to figure out what's actually going on in this world. We will see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.